Hello everyone, and today we're going to be having a look at Dragon Link after they had their newest boss monster, the Borrelend dragon, finally added to the game. This guy is an absolute menace once it's onto the field, and this deck can pretty easily and consistently not only summon this, but also a Borrelend Savage Dragon on its very first turn. So what makes this guy so powerful? First of all, he can't be destroyed by battle card effects nor targeted by monster effects, so this makes him extremely difficult to sort of remove with any sort of spot removal. Not immune to spot removal because things like Mirror Jade will still destroy it. You can still target it with non-monster cards, so you can like impermanent and destroy it that way. So it's not completely untouchable, but it drastically reduces the amount of options your opponent possibly has to try and get rid of it. So it's very difficult to get rid of. Secondly, it's an offensive machine. It can attack every monster your opponent controls once each, so it's going to completely wipe out all of your opponent's monsters, and with a 3500 attack stat, there's not going to be very much it's not swinging over. And its last and most powerful effect is that once per turn during either player's turn, it's a quick effect, you can target an effect monster in the field and a rocket monster in the graveyard, negate the monster you targeted on the field, and summon the rocket from the graveyard. And that's not negate until the end of the turn. That monster's effect are permanently negated. And your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the Borrelend Dragon's activation. So they can't respond to your negate, which is amazing. There's so many possibilities that opens up. There's so many things that your opponent now cannot do. It really is astounding the amount of options that particular ability opens up. So the Borrelend Dragon is nuts. It's actually relatively easy to summon, and you can normally summon it in addition to the Borrelend Savage Dragon, which will act as an additional Omni Negate. So the deck performs pretty well going first and second. Again, you can see the conglomerate of various dragons on your screen. You're basically just looking at a small rocket package and a absolute ton of extenders. That's pretty much what the deck is. You just want to be able to play through hand traps left, right, and center. You've got your Culprit the Grave and Crossout to help out with that, but your main objective is screw their hand traps. You're just going to turbo through, get all of your plays off. Even if all you end on is a Borrelend Dragon, that's still a really difficult board to out. Not a lot of decks have an out to it. That's why we're running the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. This is like one of the very few built-in outs you can have to a card like this, and you're going to see that coming up. But yeah, really fun deck. This is probably not an optimized version of it, but this is definitely more than enough to get the main combos off, and it's very fun. Can play through a whole bunch of interruption. It doesn't really care about the likes of impermanence and effect veiler. It can usually play through Ash. The only thing it really doesn't like is Maxi and Nibiru, which is why we're running each of them as a crossout target, but of course crossout's at 1, so it's like a god card if you draw it. But virtually all of our hand traps, unless they're hitting you with like 3 or 4 of them, you can usually play through 1 or 2 relatively easily. So yeah, I'm not going to ramble on too much here. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, feel free to subscribe to the channel and leave your requests down below, and let me know how you play Dragon Link. I know a lot of people are seeing much more competitive success with the 60 card That Grass Looks Greener versions. But unfortunately, I'm too stingy to craft That Grass Looks Greener. The fact that it's a UR, you'll need 3 of it, and the fact that it's inevitably going to get banned or restricted or limited in some way, form, or fashion as soon as some degenerate strategy abusing it comes along, and there will be one because it's been banned in the past for that reason. So I have absolutely no doubt it's going to get banned eventually. I just don't want to invest too heavily into it. But again, between this and Emancipators, I might just bite the bullet and do it. But yeah, I prefer the 40 card version simply because it's more budget accessible, a lot more straightforward, and can help you learn the deck a lot better. That's just my thoughts. You leave yours down below, and let's get into game number 1. Alrighty, getting into game 1, and you can see a Blue Eyes White Dragon in the hand here. We're going to explain that at the end. We're going to treat ourselves to a mirror match to start off, so you're going to be seeing the main combos twice. So our opponent's going to use their Quick Launch to go into the Striker Dragon, Chaos Space as well. Opening Quick Launch and Chaos Space is nuts. Our opponent opened up an amazing hand. They're going to special summon out their Wyver Burster, going into Romulus. We only have the 1 hand trap here, the Effect Veiler. He's going to use the effect of his monsters here. We're going to use the effective healer now because Dragon's Ravine is quite a powerful card, and like I said, this deck doesn't care too much about getting hit with like a single Ash or a single Veiler, so you may as well take your opportunities when they come up. That's quite a good hit. If you are playing against this, you do want to stop them from getting that Ravine because it normally results in potentially 2 or more extenders. They're going to go for their field spell here, summoning a Tracer. Tracer pop a card to summon out their Recharger, and then out comes the Borrelend Dragon. So this is the big boss monster of the deck. You see our opponent summoned it with relative ease. They set one and pass. So no Savage Dragon. Our opponent definitely, if they play like a crackhead like us, they definitely could have extended a lot more, which you're going to see in our plays. We're going to extend into more than just the Borrelend Dragon, or at least we would if it would benefit us. We're going to Chaos Space away our Blue Eyes to grab Levianeer, just an extra extender. Striker Dragon here from our Black Metal Dragon means that our Black Metal Dragon will grab us the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and the Striker Dragon will of course grab us the Field Spell Boot Sector Launch. With no rockets in hand, Boot Sector Launch isn't doing a lot for us. We're going to banish the Black Metal Dragon to go into the White Dragon Wyver Burster, summoning Romulus of our own. That's the standard sort of combo line whenever you're dealing with this. Romulus grab Dragon's Ravine, and Wyver Burster grab the Black Dragon. He is, just like we did to him, he's going to use his Infinite Impermanence now to negate our Romulus, so that means no Ravine for us. But again, you sort of have to come to expect that. We grab our Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, banish one to summon it. Gonna banish our Chaos Space now to shuffle the White Dragon back into the deck. Then we link summon into Guard Dragon Pisty. Now we summon Pisty here. Typically, I know someone probably thought, why did I summon here like you would in a standard combo? The way Pisty works is, as long as there's 2 link monsters pointing to one of your monster zones, you can summon one of your monsters from your graveyard or banish pile in there. His Borrelend Dragon is pointing to this zone, so if we summon Pisty here, we don't need to go into the extra extender to get the Pisty effect to resolve. So Pisty now is going to summon the Black Metal Dragon from the banish pile and allow us to link summon yet again into the Delingerous Dragon. Quick launch then grabbing Tracer from our deck. We're going to activate Boot Sector Launch here. Tracer's going to pop the Delingerous Dragon to summon Recharger from the deck. We're going to summon out Levianeer, banishing 3 dark monsters from our graveyard to special summon itself, thus allowing us to shuffle a card from our opponent's hand back into their deck. Remember, their monster is indestructible, so we cannot get over it this turn. We Synchro summon into the Chaos Ruler here, check the top 5 cards of our deck, add a light or a dark monster among them to our hand, and the rest go to the graveyard. You're also seeing a Dragon Maid tidying in this version. We had a couple of optimizations, but we'll talk about those at the end. We're going to go into the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragons, banishing a monster to summon the Rocket Recharger, triggering the Delingerous Dragon to summon itself as well, and out we have a Borrelend Dragon of our own. Now you can see we ended up with quite a lot more resources than our opponent did. We could have gone a lot further here, potentially going into a Quad Boral Dragon, and then using the Quad Boral Dragon's effect to go into a Savage Dragon, but there was no point in doing that with the Borrelend Dragon on the field, as it simply would have negated the Savage Dragon and then we gain nothing from it. So he's going to negate our Chaos Ruler to summon a Tracer back to his field from the graveyard. Then he's going to summon his Absol Rider Dragon, activating his Borrelend Dragon to negate our Recharger, just again to summon the Recharger of his own. He's going to go into Pisty and copy our move, resummoning the Tracer. We're going to take this opportunity to negate the Pisty using the Borrelend Dragon. Now, again, the Borrelend Dragon also couldn't be destroyed by battle, so we couldn't just crash in, but we do have a plan. Our opponent goes into the Borrelend Dragon here, which is very interesting. I read this card's effect and thought to myself, I am cooked. So our opponent's going to go and use the Borrelend Dragon to reduce our attack and defense points by 500. You cannot respond to that effect. Absol Rider grab the Rocket Synchron, and the White Dragon Wyver Burster will grab the Black Dragon. So he's just stacking cards on cards. Rocket Synchron will resummon the Absol Rider from the graveyard. That's a 1 plus a 7, allowing him to go into a Savage Dragon of his very own. Savage Dragon, of course, grabbing Romulus and boosting itself up with 2 counters. He's going to swing in to take out our Chaos Ruler, which was interesting considering the Borrelend Dragon can attack everything, but I guess he gets like 100 points of extra damage out. Now, why did our opponent do that? Well, he was probably looking at this and saying, whenever you're basically at the start of the damage step, if it battles an opponent's monster, you can place that monster in a zone that this guy points to. Our opponent didn't use their head. This guy isn't pointing to any open zones. so he couldn't resolve that effect. Our opponent, he had the right idea. This is an out to the Borrelend Dragon, so it is something that might be worth playing, but you need to have an open zone next to it to resolve its effect. So I guess I hope he was taking notes at least. So moving back into our turn, we're still in a relatively decent position. Again, remember that Savage Dragon doesn't really do much on its own. He's going to use its effect now to try and negate our boot sector launch, but we're just going to negate it. Again, it means very, very little to us because we can't target his Borrelend Dragon anyways, and it gets us an extender back onto the field in the form of the Rocket Recharger. Boot sector launch then. We activated the effect to summon monsters from the graveyard. We probably shouldn't have, but it's fine. Going to use the Chaos Ruler Banish 2 to summon itself. Use Destrudo to summon itself as well. Special summon it to White Dragon Wyvern Burster. And we're going to link summon into Underworld, Goddess of the Closed World. So basically, we were just spamming our extenders. We just wanted to get a whole bunch of monsters on board so we can link summon into this. This is one of the better link monsters, I think, in the game at the moment, because the rise of the Borrelend Dragon has led to many decks playing these big, unbeatable boss monsters. So it's always nice to have a card like this. Our opponent sees exactly what's happening and they decide that enough is enough, and that is an L. So yeah, really, really cool mirror match. Honestly, I love seeing the Borrelend Dragon. This was actually our first duel playing this deck, our very first one. We built the deck and then we decided we're going to go in and test it, and our first duel was a mirror match, which I thought was really cool, and it was even better that we were able to come out on top. I love the Borrelend Dragon idea. I was very, very tempted to put it in. I just didn't want to stretch for the extra UR credits, but I think the Borrelend or Borrel Sword Dragons would fit into this deck very, very well, so do consider that as an option. But yeah, really fun and entertaining game. You saw the power of the Borrelend Dragon on both sides of the field. Now, let's get into Duel Number 2, where the Borrelend Dragon maybe wasn't enough by itself. Alright, getting into Game 2 here. We're actually going first this time. I'm going to use Chaos Space here. We're going to ditch the Nibiru. We figured because we're going first, we're not going to need it. Grab the Black Dragon Wyvern, Collapse Ribbon, sorry. Summon it, then link summon into Striker Dragon. We're going to grab the White Dragon from the Black Dragon's effect, and we would have grabbed the Boot Sector launch, but they really seem to love negating that effect, which I'm okay with. I don't think the Boot Sector launch isn't that powerful. It's pretty good, but if they're going to waste an Imperm or a Veiler or an Ash on the Striker Dragon, by all means, go knock yourself out, Chief. We're going to summon out the White Dragon, use Chaos Space as well to draw an additional card. We draw on the Crossout Designator, which could be really good. We've got the White Dragon Wyvern Burster and the Romulus. Our opponent goes for a second Imperm, and that's where the Crossout Designator comes in. We figured there's no way they've got another big hand trap in their hand after having 2 copies of Impermanence. Whether that's foolish or not, we don't know. We're going to banish a copy of Imperm ourselves to get negating, because Dragon's Ravine is significantly stronger than the Boot Sector launch, at least in my opinion. It offers a lot more versatility, not necessarily as much extension, but more versatility. We're going to send Absol Rider from deck to graveyard, search our deck for a Rocket monster. We grab the Rocket Synchron, and we just set one pass. We didn't have the ability to extend because we didn't have the Boot Sector launch. Sorry, no, I'm a liar. We had the ability to normal summon there. We hadn't normal summoned that entire turn, if you were paying attention. No normal summons there. The reason we passed is because I kept on feeling a delay coming from his hand, and I was convinced he had Nibiru. So I didn't want to get like way deep into the combo and then just get Nibiru, so I thought to myself, right, what we're going to do is go to end phase, force him to use an end of main phase 1 effect, and hopefully it is a Nibiru he activates it, and then we just continue our main phase. Unfortunately, I was wrong. Our opponent just goes straight into end phase, and then in our opponent's turn they activate the Numeron network. So it was a misplay on my part. I was trying to be too far ahead of the game, and it is going to cost us big time here because our opponent's able to summon out their 4 gates. They swing in. We're going to use Imperm to negate the effect of the first, so now he can be destroyed by battle and no attack boost. This protects us from lethal damage this turn, but we're still going to take a pretty massive hit. So we take 800 there and then 4,000 to the face from the last gate, and he's still able to link summon here into the Infinitrack Fortress Megaclops. Now this is very similar to the Borrelend dragon in that it's just a big monster that's hard to get rid of. It's unaffected by any monster effect except an Exceed monster, which is the only extra deck mechanic we don't take advantage of. Well, that and fusion, but who needs fusion? And our opponent's going to replace their field spell with Generator Boss Stage. That's the first time I've ever seen that tech in that type of deck. We're not going to allow that at all. He's going to go for the Generator after we draw. We're going to ash that. We do not need to be dealing with a field full of Generator boss monsters. Going into main one here, we're going to use Rocket Synchron, grabbing the Absol from the graveyard, and we're going to go into a Link Summon to Striker Dragon. We still have Boot Sector Launch in our deck because it got negated the first time, so we're going to grab it here. Going to preemptively use our Dragon Ravine to send to Strudo, and Link Summon now into the Delindrous Dragon. Now, the Absol Dragon will grab the Rocket Recharger from the deck when it's sent to the grave, giving us 2 valid targets for our Boot Sector launch. So we're going to summon out Rocket Tracer and Recharger. The Strudo is going to summon itself as well. How this card works is if you control I'm not sure if it has to be a dragon. Where did my monster go? It's somewhere. Oh, it went to the bottom of the deck. So the way the Strudo works is if you have a level 6 or lower monster, you reduce this card's level by that monster's level and then summon it. So it's just a free extender, really. Gonna go into the Borrelend Dragon because we were locked into dark monsters this turn. So the Borrelend Dragon basically is going to protect us from battle destruction. It's not going to be affected by that Raigeki. What a waste of a good card. He's going to swing in to do 500 damage, but he cannot take us out. We are indestructible. He cannot get over us. And our opponent has a major weakness on their field, the boss stage. They are forced to summon 5 generator tokens to their field if they have 5 zones. Our opponent has 4 zones, so 4 generator tokens, and they all must be in attack position. We're going to preemptively negate his shadow there just to stop it from doing any shenanigans. The Delindrous Dragon's going to trigger on the summon of the Tracer to summon itself too. We're going to use the Boot Sector Launches effect to basically... it will count the difference between the amount of numbers he has and the amount of monsters I have, and summon rockets from the graveyard to make up the difference. He currently controls 5 monsters, we currently control 3, so we get to summon 2 rockets from the graveyard. We only had 2 in there anyway, so we grab our Rocket Synchron and Recharger out to the field. That's more than enough to summon out Underworld Goddess of the Closed World here. Swing in with the Borrelend Dragon, 2k to the face, 2k to the face, 2k to the face, taking out his shadow here, and then opening up for a direct 3000 attack. So there you go. That is just how brutally quickly the deck can wipe out a field. Now, this deck is very unique in that even going second with like next to no resources available to itself, the Borrelend Dragon's ability to resummon a rocket from the graveyard, and then the Tracer's ability to then summon out additional rockets from the deck means that you're almost always able to extend quite heavily into a follow-up play as long as you still have your Borrelend Dragon. That's what makes this goddess such a powerful card, because she is so ridiculously easy to summon as a follow-up, which is nuts to me because you can tribute one of your opponent's monsters for it. And it's also quite a powerful card, 3000 attack, and if they try to revive something from the graveyard, it gets negated. So it provides, removes one of their strongest cards, provides an additional interruption, and provides a huge 3k beater on your field as well. So love that card, super easy to use in this deck. Let's get into game number 3. Alrighty, and Duel 3. We are going first here. We're going to open up with Starliege Seifert. We're going to discard our Rocket Recharger to go into the Black Dragon Collapsarbent. Link Summon into the Striker Dragon, but we already have Boot Sector Launch in hand, which is unfortunate. Summon out the Black Dragon to go into the Romulus. Black Dragon and Romulus activate here. Probably could have done those the other way around, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to grab our Dragon Ravine as well as the White Dragon Wyver Burster. So Wyver Burster here, banish black from the graveyard, activate our Dragon Ravine, ditching the Boot Sector Launch. It's useless to send to Strudo. The Strudo then will get summoning itself to the field. Now our opponent at this stage goes for the Nibiru. So this is what I was referring to whenever I was saying that's one of the deck's biggest weaknesses. I didn't want to show you just games of it just winning. It does of course have its flaws. Our opponent's going to go for the incredible Ecclesia here, but we're not out of play as we have the Ash Blossom in our hand. Ash Blossom then is going to effectively stop the Ecclesia here. He does have the Sword Soul Strategist in his hand though, which is nuts. Both Ecclesia and Strategist and Nibiru. This guy just opened up a broken oil hand. He's going to summon out the Baron de Fleur. That spells the end of the game because he pops our token. We activate Effective Healer, but he disrespectful. He doesn't even use Baron's Negate. He's going to Call by the Grave the Effective Healer because using Baron's Negate was just too good, I guess. Absolute BM, but you know what? It is what it is. I don't want to prove anything wrong about this deck. This deck isn't top tier. There we go. We get slapped by the Nibiru really easily there. This deck is still fragile. I wanted to show this off because I didn't want it to seem like a turbo unstoppable deck. Max C has a similar impact onto the deck, and you're still going to have difficulties against the likes of top tier options like Sword Soul and Branded, but if you're going first, you at least are able to set up 1 or 2 solid layers of interruption against them, and it's usually enough to sort of maintain the lead. But you do need to watch out for the likes of Nibiru. Not that there's very much you can do about it most of the time, but that's just life. It is what it is. But yeah, let's not waste too much time lingering on an unavoidable defeat, and let's instead get into the deck profile. Alrighty, having a look at the deck profile, we're going to address the elephant in the room here. We were in the first duel playing it slightly differently to how we currently were. We were playing Blue Eyes White Dragon, the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, as well as a small Dragon Shrine little engine here. So the idea was Dragon Shrine would send Blue Eyes and Blue Eyes Jet to the graveyard, and then you would resummon them both later on, which was really cool, but it just added 2 big bricks to the deck, and Dragon Shrine itself wasn't nearly consistent enough, so we ended up cutting it for the Seaford engine, which worked out a lot better. Dragon Maids were the same, they were cool, but they didn't extend super well. They were more of a starter, and we already have more than enough starters in the Seafords. If you want to cut this down and put in the Chambermaid, by all means go ahead. I just like the Seaford because it gets your Tracer and everything, gets your Chaos Dragons going really easily, so I'd rather get more extension rather than an additional interruption. But yeah, those are the differences between the versions you were seeing. Let's get into this one, and we're going to break it down here, of course, by removing first all of the additional sort of fluff, the hand traps, if you will. So we're playing a double Veiler, for obvious reasons, double Max C, triple Ash Blossom. We're playing the Nibiru at 1, primarily as a target for Cross-Out Designator, but it's still a very solid card. We're playing the double Call by the Grave, 1 Cross-Out Designator, and 2 Infinite Impermanence. So there's 27 zones, even in the 40 card version, that you have to just do whatever you want with. You don't even have to take out any of your starters if you want to play like the Dragon Maids or the Dragon Shrine. You just throw these guys in here, and then you can just play less hand traps. Like, that's up to you. Whatever you do with those last like 13 zones, completely and entirely your business. Now, what are we actually playing here? This deck it's almost entirely just, there's a few starters and then the rest of it is just extension. This is just extend out the deck. Opening up with Black Metal Dragon. Ironically, we play this with 1, but it is one of our better starter cards. Probably the best normal summon in the deck, I would say. Probably alongside Seaford, whichever one of these. If you open up one of these 2, typically you're doing very well. Although this guy has a bit of a cost associated with his effect, so I would say the Black Metal Dragon is probably better. We play this guy at 1, and we play 1 for 1, so there's basically like 2 copies of it. Whenever he's sent to the graveyard, you will search your deck for the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. So this guy's just a really good sort of value card as a starter going into your Striker Dragon. So very solid. You can play this guy at 3. I honestly do like playing multiple copies of him. I might bring it up at a later date, but 1 has been working just fine. Rocket Synchron, again, it's just a rocket monster with a different name, level 1 tuner, pretty useful. When he's normal summoned, you can also grab a level 5 or higher Dark Dragon and summon it from your grave, so that effect on occasion comes up. So a very solid card overall. You've got your Chaos Dragons. I play 1 of each. Most people play 2 of the White Dragon. I think 1 of each is fine. 1 summons by banishing a dark, 1 summons by banishing a light, and when one of them is sent to the graveyard, they search for the other one. Very powerful combination. There's a Chaos Space, which we'll get to in a moment, but these cards are vital to play in the deck. You may want to double up on them as well. A lot of people do double up on the White Dragon. Triple Tracer, you can play this at 2, I like 3. This is your primary rocket monster. You can basically destroy another face-up card in your field to summon a rocket from your deck, but that does lock you into dark monsters, so do be careful of that. A few times we locked ourselves out of a Goddess play, accidentally doing that, so bear that in mind. But this guy is basically your primary rocket that you want to be summoning off of your boot sector launch. So this guy's pretty damn broken. Recharger is just a level 4 rocket basically. He does have a cool effect where if he's in your hand and a dark link monster I think is destroyed, you can discard him to summon a dark dragon from the graveyard. So pretty neat sort of recursion effect. Starlight Seaford is one of your main starters. You can basically send a dragon card from your hand or field to the graveyard to add a dragon from your deck to your hand whose level totals the levels you sent. So normally you'll be discarding a level 4 to be adding one of your 2 Chaos Dragons and then sort of link summoning and chaining and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So Seaford's really cool. We've got Destrudo, who in the graveyard will reduce the level of one of your monsters on the field to summon itself, so it's a free extender. Does cost you half your life points, but you know, it is what it is. It's usually worth it. Absol Rider Dragon, if you control a rocket, special summon it from your hand, and when it's sent to the graveyard, search your deck for a rocket. So really powerful. Typically you'll be sending it to the graveyard off of Dragon Ravine, either it or Destrudo, whichever one you have access to. But this guy's really strong. You can play him at 1, but I think 2 is fine. You don't mind opening him up so long as you have a rocket to chain alongside him. Noctovision Dragon, basically whenever a dark dragon is special summoned to your field, you can summon this guy from your hand, and if he's used in a link summon, you draw a card. So just really good extender. Some extra cards advantage there with the drawing, so replaces himself. You can't really ask for very much more in an extender. Chaos Dragon Levianeer is a very unique and very powerful card, easily searchable off of Chaos Space now in this version. Basically, you banish 3 monsters from your graveyard, and depending on their attributes, you get to complete one of 3 effects. So if you banish all light monsters, you summon a monster from your graveyard. If you banish all dark, you return a card from your opponent's hand back into the deck, which you saw in the gameplay. And if you banish a mixture of light and dark, you get to pick 2 cards on the field and destroy them, non-targeting destruction, and it's 2. So Chaos Dragon Levianeer, brutal card, very powerful, and it's very easily searchable as well off of Chaos Space. So loving the Levianeer. And the Red Ice Darkness Metal Dragon, searchable off of Black Metal Dragon. Banish a dragon on your field to special summon it, and once per turn, choose a monster, a dragon monster in your hand or graveyard, and summon it for free. So really solid extender, basically turns 1 monster on your field into 2. What more can you ask for? Foolish Burial to proc your Absol Rider Dragon Destrudo, sometimes your Seaford, sometimes your Recharger, but mostly Absol Rider and Destrudo. 1-for-1 to summon a Black Metal Dragon. Chaos Space, you'll discard a light or a dark to add either the Chaos Dragon of the opposite attribute, or if you already have it, your Levianeer. Basically, really solid extension. You can also shuffle back one of these cards from your banish pile back into the deck while this is in the graveyard to draw an additional card. So really powerful. You would have saw this in the gameplay. Both effects resolve quite regularly. Dragon Ravine, searchable off of Romulus. This will allow you to discard a card to send a dragon from deck to graveyard. Again, proccing your Absol Rider, proccing your Destrudo. In the Blue Eyes version, that's how you're going to be getting your Blue Eyes and your Jet to graveyard if you don't have Shrine. So Dragon Ravine is very powerful. Boot Sector Launch, summon out multiple rockets from your hand with different names, so really strong extender. Searchable off of your Striker Dragon. And lastly, Quick Launch, one of the most powerful cards in the deck, one of the few reasons rockets are even viable. Special summon any rocket from your deck, but it gets destroyed in the end phase. Not once per turn, and no restrictions, nothing like that. Just take a rocket, summon it, as long as you destroy it in the end phase, but it's not going to be there in the end phase. So Quick Launch is a really powerful card. Getting into the extra deck here quickly, Borrelend Savage Dragon, we all know what this does. It's your primary synchro monster. It can negate cards. It's an omni negate. When it's summoned, pick a link monster in the graveyard, equip it on. It gains a counter per link rating of that card, and you can get rid of a counter to conduct an omni negate. So Borrelend Savage Dragon's pretty nuts. Chaos Ruler is here for consistency. When summoned, check the top 5 cards of your deck, add a light or a dark to your hand, and the rest go to the graveyard. You saw it in the gameplay. Abyss is very easily summoned just off of your Chaos Ruler, as well as your Rocket Synchron. Basically, this guy can summon himself back from the grave by banishing a light and a dark, so you can use that in combination with your Rocket Synchron to go into the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which is basically an Omni Negate for a face-up card on the field, which is pretty sick. We've got Guard Dragon Pisty, which you saw in the gameplay. If you have 2 arrows pointing to one of your monster zones, resurrect a dragon there. Striker Dragon is your primary starter card, Link 1, and whenever it's Link summoned, you search for Bootsecker Lodge. Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, bounce cards if it's in your extra monster zone. Dragoon of the Knight Romulus searches for your Dragon Ravine on summon. Delindrous Dragon resummons itself from the graveyard whenever one of your rockets are summoned back to your field, so this is really good for going into one of your big Link plays, because having a Link 2 that just recurs itself super easily is always very powerful. The Quad Boral Dragon, this card in theory was really strong. Discard a card, destroy a Link monster, and then summon back rockets equal to that monster's links. I have like never used this card in this deck. I used to use it a lot in older versions, but it just doesn't fit in this version anymore since it's just not very reliant on the rockets themselves. So you can replace this card. I was going to with either Borrelend or Boral Sword Dragon. I don't know which of the 2 I want yet. So you can consider doing the same, but that is entirely up to you. IP Mask Arena, for obvious reasons, Link summon during your opponent's turn, and that Link monster can't be destroyed by card effects, so pretty brutal. Unicorn to get bouncing a card, Access Code Talker to get popping cards and swing for lethal. Got the Borrelend Dragon, which we talked about the whole way through the video, as well as a breakdown at the beginning. And lastly, the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Link summons using your opponent's unbeatable boss monsters. If they've got something that you just can't get rid of, just use it in a Link summon. It's as easy as that. It can also negate any effects that sort of revive from the graveyard, which is a nice little bonus, you know, 3k beater. And it has one other funky effect, doesn't it? On summon negates everything your controls. It's unaffected by activated effects unless they target this card, which is a really interesting thing. So that means no Raigeki will break it, no lightning storms. What do you call it? Mirror Jade can't get rid of this card because it doesn't target. Chimera can't get rid of this card because it doesn't target. Stuff like that. It doesn't come very often, to be honest, because they can usually just beat its ass. You know, it's 3k, which is big, but Chimera is bigger, so it's not a massive deal, but it is something that, you know, it's still worth noting. But yeah, that's the full breakdown of the deck list, including the extra deck. It's a really fun deck. There are approximately at least 17 million different ways of playing this deck. So you can do whatever you want. You can just chop and change, you can cut things down, change the ratios, throw in a bunch of different extenders, play the 60 card version while grass it's greener, do whatever you want. But Dragon Link in general is loving their new boss monster, actually giving the deck an identity and not making it just another deck that spams Synchron monsters and Link monsters. So having a bit of identity and continuity to the deck is always very exciting. It means that they have something to work towards, and what a boss monster it is. I mean, just look at it. It's such a beautiful card. But yes, I'm not going to ramble on any further. That's it. That's all my thoughts on the deck. You can leave yours down below and subscribe while you're there, and I'll see y'all in the next one.